Today we are going to learn how to reduce your risk of tearing during delivery, even if you've torn in the past or you're a first-time mom. I'm a mom of 8. I've given birth to 8 babies. My second baby was a C-section and my other 7 have been vaginal deliveries. My first 6 vaginal deliveries, I tore second, third degree tears. They had to stitch up and I had rough recoveries because of that. My 8th baby last year was a vaginal delivery and I hardly tore at all. They didn't have to stitch me up and my recovery was so much smoother because of that. I want to help you and other women experience less tearing with their deliveries and have a much smoother recovery. So I'm going to share with you the 4 things that I learned and that I did during the last month of my pregnancy to reduce tearing. So as you prepare for birth, the most important thing you can learn is to relax your pelvic floor. So a common misconception that I hear is that women think we have to have a strong pelvic floor to push that baby out. And actually that's not true. We need to have a pelvic floor that can completely relax and get out of the way for that baby to pass through easily. So when we learn to relax that pelvic floor, it shortens pushing time and helps reduce tearing. So we've already learned how to relax our pelvic floor on the inhale and squeeze and lift our pelvic floor on the exhale while engaging our transverse abdominals. If you haven't learned that, check out my pelvic floor and core fundamentals playlist because this is so important. No matter where you are in pregnancy or postpartum on your timeline, this is a skill you need to have for the rest of your life. So please check that out. So now from 35 weeks or so until delivery, it's time to start focusing on relaxing the pelvic floor instead of strengthening, including during our workouts. So it's never too late if you're further along. If you're thinking, oh, I missed the 35-week cutoff, it's not a cutoff. If you're going to deliver tomorrow, start working on this today. It's never too late. So from 35 weeks on or so, we're going to stop engaging our pelvic floor with exercise, and instead we're going to keep it relaxed on the exhale while still engaging our transverse abdominals. So what we worked on before is if we were going into a lunge, we would inhale on the way down, exhale, bring in that pelvic floor and engage those transverse abdominals on the way up. Now we're going to be engaging, we're going to still take a nice inhale on the way down, exhale, engage those transverse abdominals, but keep that pelvic floor relaxed, and still exhale. So that's what we're going to be kind of training our brain to relearn this pattern for those last month of pregnancy and throughout delivery. So let's see. Okay, so you can go ahead and practice this with me. So you can take a nice big inhale. You should feel that pelvic floor naturally come down on the inhale. And now we're going to exhale, but we're going to keep that pelvic floor relaxed instead of naturally feeling it recoil. So we're going to engage those transverse abdominals on the exhale, keep that pelvic floor relaxed. Go ahead and practice with me. Inhale, feel that relax. Engage those transverse abdominals while keeping that pelvic floor relaxed. Let's take a few more breaths here and practice that. Inhale, relax, exhale, engage those transverse abdominals, keep that pelvic floor relaxed. 2 more breaths. Keep it relaxed. 1 more. Keep that pelvic floor relaxed. We're not bearing down, we're just keeping it relaxed. Keep those that core engaged, pelvic floor relaxed. So that might take a lot of practice for your brain to kind of wrap your mind around that, and that's okay. Spend some time in lots of different positions, practicing that, laying down, sitting, standing, during your exercise, whatever works for you to really get your brain wrapped around this kind of new breathing pattern. So number 3, the third thing that I did was to add in daily pelvic floor relaxation exercises. And you can do these at the end of your workout for the day, before bed, any old time while you're playing on the floor with your kids. You can't do too much pelvic floor relaxing during this final month of your pregnancy. So fit it in whenever you want. You can create consistent time or just do it as you like, but make sure it happens every day. It's very important. So I created 10 videos of follow along pelvic floor relaxation. If you'd like to follow along with those, go ahead. You don't have to do them in any specific order. They are numbered. That's just to help you keep track, but they don't need to go in order at all. So, you know, watch those, go through the whole series, start it over again, find your favorites, do those over and over. It doesn't matter as long as you're getting that pelvic floor nice and lengthened and practicing relaxing daily. That will be really helpful for you. So the fourth thing that we need to learn is the technique for pushing. So a lot of times when you're in the delivery room, nobody really teaches you how to push until you're in the delivery room. And the nurse, the doctor will say, okay, take a nice big inhale, hold it, and push for the count of 10. And actually, that's kind of not really what we want, because when we hold our breath and push, it tightens our pelvic floor and doesn't allow the baby to pass through as easily as it otherwise could. So what we want to do is make sure we're not holding our breath and keeping those pelvic floor muscles relaxed. And we'll talk more about that and we'll practice a little later. So as I mentioned before, we want those pelvic floor muscles to completely relax and get out of the way so that the baby can pass through easily. And like I said, that will reduce the risk of tearing and hopefully shorten your pushing time. So the pattern we're going to learn for pushing is to let our pelvic floor relax. It's kind of building on what we did before. So I'm just going to show you. You'll take a nice big inhale, exhale, engage those transverse abdominals. You'll be kind of pushing with a slight bearing down and keeping that pelvic floor relaxed. And a cue that I know some women like to use is use those abdominal muscles like you're squeezing a tube of toothpaste to get that baby out. So you need to make sure, number one thing is not holding your breath. So like I said, inhale, let that pelvic floor come down and relax. And then on the exhale, engage those transverse abdominals lightly, and you'll be lightly pushing that baby out. So this is not like a giant push as hard as you can effort like that. Obviously, if your baby's in distress, then that's different, and you do need to push as hard as you can, get that baby out quickly. But in general, if your baby's doing fine, and you're feeling the urge to push, you can kind of just relax. Let your body push as it feels like it needs to. Keep that pelvic floor relaxed, keep breathing, and use those transverse abdominals to push that baby out. Now, if you have an epidural, then a lot of times it can be harder to feel that urge to push. Maybe you won't feel any urge to push at all, and that's okay. So if your delivery is going smoothly, then you can push along with those contractions, because we want to use the effort of the contraction and the effort of our breath to work together to get that baby out. If you have an epidural, you may need to just push a little bit more than just letting your body push. So a key for not tearing is we want to make sure our perineum, which is that skin between our vagina and our anus, we want to let it stretch nice and slowly. That's when it tends to not tear as much, because it's not just being ripped through. So as the baby's crowning, if we're pushing slowly and kind of not panicking, just letting the baby come out slowly, that's when we kind of decrease our rate of tearing. So as I said, if the baby's doing fine, you can kind of just push nice and slowly, nice and gently, without holding your breath, and let that baby come out on its own. You can also practice this breathing when you're having bowel movements. I know it seems weird, but the same nerve that stimulates the need to push during a bowel movement is the same nerve that stimulates our need to push during childbirth. And so if we can create this mind-body connection of, okay, when I feel that need to push, I relax my pelvic floor, I engage my transverse abdominals, and I gently push, then that will be so helpful during delivery when it's a little bit more high stress situation. you're not maybe not thinking as clearly, you have this to draw back on. Of you've practiced several times, your body knows what to do. So let's see. Oh, like I talked about, make sure that you're not holding your breath. So some women like to vocalize when they're giving birth. But if you do choose to vocalize, make sure that you're choosing sounds that keep your glottis open, like ah, oh, zzz, sounds like that, instead of like a high-pitched screaming. Because when we keep our glottis open with those deep sounds, it helps keep our pelvic floor open and relaxed. And so we want to make sure that we can use that symbiotic connection to keep the pelvic floor open, keep the glottis open, instead of screaming, pulling it in nice and tight, and tightening our pelvic floor. So by practicing these things while you're having a bowel movement from 35 weeks on, you're creating that mind-body connection I talked about. So even if you have an epidural, even if you can't totally feel that urge to push, your body and your mind will be able to work together and know what they're supposed to be doing. So now we're gonna practice. So we're gonna take a nice big inhale, feel that pelvic floor widen and spread, and we're going to push slowly. And I like to use a count of 10. I know that kind of helps my brain, like, okay, I have something to count to, something to look forward to. And so the biggest thing, again, making sure that you're not holding your breath when you push. So let's go ahead and practice probably 3 times through. Inhale, pelvic floor expands, exhale, use those transverse abdominals to push down on that pelvic floor very gently. Make sure to keep that pelvic floor relaxed. 2 more, inhale, exhale, one more. You can purse your lips, you can have your mouth open, you can vocalize, whatever is most comfortable for you. So let's do this last one together, and we're gonna count to 10 on the exhale. Inhale, exhale, keep that pelvic floor relaxed. Okay, so we've practiced that together now, and in general, you don't want to practice bearing down very often. It's just not good for your pelvic floor. So that's why I say practice it while you're having a bowel movement, and that will be enough to help get that mind-body connection. But when you're not having a bowel movement, just practice the relaxation and the engagement of those transverse abdominals, making sure you can get that coordination down, keeping the pelvic floor relaxed, keeping those transverse abdominals engaged, using them like a tube of toothpaste to get that baby out. So I suggest practicing this breathing 2 minutes in the morning, 2 minutes at night, focusing again on keeping that pelvic floor relaxed, engaging those transverse abdominals, and during your bowel movements. So make sure to practice with your workouts as well. Like I mentioned, we're not bearing down, we're just simply letting that pelvic floor stay relaxed on the exhale, even during your workout. So, you're doing a squat, you're gonna come down, inhale, let that pelvic floor expand, relax, exhale, keep that pelvic floor relaxed, engage those transverse abdominals. And again, just practice it as much as you can, as much as you need to get that pattern really cemented in your brain. So here are the 4 takeaways again. 1, learn to relax your pelvic floor. Watch the pelvic floor the pelvic floor videos in the pelvic floor and core fundamentals playlist. You can find that on my homepage on YouTube. 2, stop engaging your pelvic floor during exercise. Keep it nice and relaxed on the exhale. 3, practice relaxing your pelvic floor daily. Again, you can do it in different positions. You can use the 10 videos that I provide. They're in the playlist after this video. There's 10 of them. Again, they don't need to be in any order. Find your favorites, do those over and over. You can basically just make sure you're finding time to get that pelvic floor in a nice, relaxed, lengthened position and breathing a few times, at least a few times a week, but really daily is the goal, to make sure that your pelvic floor has every opportunity to learn to expand, to get that mind-body connection. And then, like I said, practice that mind-body connection for pushing with your bowel movements and any other time, as long as you're not bearing down. So here, as we kind of get to the end of this video, are some tips for labor. So if you think you might want to push in a certain position, and I'm gonna create a video about pushing positions, but for now, if you have a position that you think you would like to push in, whether it be side lying, squatting, or even on your back, I know a lot of people kind of villainize, is that the word? Anyways, they make it seem bad to push on your back, and it doesn't have to be bad. If that's comfortable for you and you're feeling like you can get expansion of your pelvic floor in a back lying position, great, go for it. I just know that sometimes back lying is not comfortable when you get to the pushing phase. So if you want to be pushing in a different position, practice in that position. Practice is breathing in that position. Again, create the mind-body connection between what it feels like in that position. And of course, that doesn't tie you to having to push or labor in a certain position, because sometimes what you think might be comfortable during labor doesn't end up being comfortable, and that's okay. You can be flexible with what needs to happen once you're actually in labor. So the second tip for labor is stay hydrated at the end of your pregnancy. So there's actually quite a bit of data that shows that moms who are well hydrated the day before labor have a significantly less chance of tearing during delivery. And IVs obviously hydrate you during labor. And I'm not saying that that's bad. If you're gonna have an IV, great. I personally like to have an IV for that reason, but we're talking hydration the day before. It's just like a marathon. If you're gonna run a marathon, you're not gonna go into it dehydrated and hope that the water you're drinking while you're running for 4 hours straight is gonna keep you hydrated. The hydration level you have the day prior to your big race is gonna be what really is helpful to keep those tissues nice and pliable and stretch easily. So make sure you're staying hydrated. And I know that's hard at the end of pregnancy. You're in the bathroom all the time, that baby's sitting on your bladder, but just plan that you're gonna drink a lot of water and be in the bathroom, and just have that end goal in mind, that it's gonna keep those tissues nice and easy and ready to stretch during delivery. So that's what we have today. Good luck with your delivery. I would genuinely love to hear how your delivery went, if these tips helped you. And of course, I would love to see pictures of your cute baby. Again, if you have any questions, please reach out in the comments. I am always happy to help. And you're strong, you're capable, you're gonna do great, you've got this.